on. I see that he has. I'm going to invite him up to speak today, but you know the drill. Drop below where you guys are tuning in from so we can see just how far the show is reaching across the world. We know that people jump on here globally, which is really cool. And then we're going to dive into today's conversation. There he
Hey,
I love it. There he is. Hey, Anthony, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing amazing. I would so sorry for me being late.
It's all right.
I hate being late, but I appreciate your patience.
Yeah, we're good.
But before we dive into today's conversation, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to everybody that's watching, and then we're gonna dive right into it.
Yeah. My name is Anthony Trucks. I hail from no, I'm I'm a guy that is a man of God. I'm a man of many weird passions. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm also a coach, and I teach people like you said how to make shift happen, which goes to the core of who we are and tap into that one weird thing that everybody has but nobody controls that actually controls our life, which is our identity. So that's me. That's my world. That's what I do.
And here is a profound question to get this kicked off. I mean, why
Yeah.
identity? Why tap into something so deep, so vulnerable, so vital? I mean, that can get really sticky in there.
No, it does. The thing is, it's always there. It's funny as if you ask somebody who they are. We're not going to go to the science level yet, but essentially, at a science level, you really are. It's like your identity is who you are when you aren't thinking about who you are. So it's not this thing where you're consciously aware of it. It just shows up in ways. But here's the unique part of it is because it shows up in the kind of, we'll call it the crevices and the nooks and crannies of our life. It's in control of a lot of our life. And so when we are feeling pain from a lack of success or lack of progress, like whatever it may be, it can always be attached back to that. So it's funny that like we'll say, I don't want to poke into that and because that'll be fun and weird to deal with. However, we'll be okay experiencing a life that's unfulfilled. But it's interesting. It's like you
Mm.
get to choose the pain you want. You can deal with this. You can have like a 10 of pain and like navigate that for a couple of days, or you can say, look, I'm going to experience a 1 or 2 of pain for the rest of my life. I would much rather rip the Band-Aid off and figure out how to utilize that and then have a lot more joy in the back end.
If that's not a real statement, I don't know what is. We would choose to be in pain and not having fulfilled life rather than rip the band-aid off, get in there and fix and really be able to get on track to who God created us to be. That
Yeah.
was honestly probably one of the realest things I've heard all day. I love that. And so obviously you've had quite the trajectory of playing professional, being a professional athlete, diving into this. What made you, want to make that switch?
Nothing. It was accident. That's how it starts though, right? It's usually an accident. No, I didn't. So I got out of the NFL, my degrees in kinesiology, and I just was living my life doing my gym thing. But the interesting part of my life was not that enjoyable. I'm running
Mm.
through the race, like trying to figure out who am I without football. The gym business I had wasn't going that well. My marriage wasn't going that well. Like we had to get divorced. Like life was not that great post game, and I kind of navigated a lot of ups and downs for a lot of years. And then in a weird way, I stumbled across this, we'll call it world, and an individual who shared it with me, without even like knowing he was sharing it with me. And I was like, man, this is really engaging. It connects me to a place of making sense of my life that's been crazy. And what if I find a way to do something unique with it? And so that was kind of like the transition into this weird world of just sharing the story. And it's hard at first. Like it's hard to share these deep, dark parts of your soul. But then you start realizing, someone told me this years ago, they said, when you share your story, it's never your story. It's your experience. It's the
Mm.
world's story. So I was like, oh, it's not mine to hold on, not mine to not give. And so like I've been putting my story out in the world. And what's cool is there's a sweet spot, and you probably can attest to this. It's beautiful when you can do something you love and people love that you do it.
Mm.
That's
Yes.
a little bubble I live in nowadays.
Yes. No, and how amazing is that? It's like people could probably look at being like, okay, wow, he was, pro athlete playing football, and then you had this identity crisis, like, what am I doing here? And now you just dug into that, like you said, rip off the band-aid, and now
Yeah.
you love what you do, and just you wouldn't have it any other way. People will be like, oh, but I would love to play sports and this and that. And
Oh, sounds
yes,
good.
that's what the world wants, that's what the world
Yeah.
sees. Myself included, when I was a news anchor and reporter, they're like, I had people even today, that sounds like a dream job. I'm like, but it wasn't. It was actually not ideal. And I
Mhm.
took a lot of great things from it. But
Yeah.
now I get to do what I love to do. It lights me up every day. And it was
Yeah.
powerful what you said. It was so powerful. Like people appreciate you for showing up the way you show up to help them to show up for themselves.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think we all go through those little times of hardship. But the unique thing is, a lot of people they get stuck on the race and they never cross the finish line. So they're in the middle, like you ever seen like the TV shows that are race and they go off track and like they're just wandering off the track. And so the problem is they're not doing any service to them because they're not actually making it farther down the path. And then on top of
Mm.
that, sometimes those people start telling you how to run the race. And if you follow them, you end up there too. So I found like the best time, if you want to call it at all, is like you have to cross the finish line before you start telling someone how to run the race. And so like life gives us these amazing moments. We navigate them. When we can cross the finish line, there is joy there. But now it's actually an opportunity for you to go back and start telling people like, hey, should have taken that left. I took it. Don't take it. Make it right. Like little nuances that help progress people forwards.
Yes, I love that. And kind of shifting gears here a little bit because identity, again, it can be such a deep topic. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are on here, you know, whether they're just getting started in their journey or they're, you know, making 8, 9 figures, wherever you're at, you know, identity is something that people have to, you know, okay, well, they'll question it a lot. And you
Yeah.
mentioned something really powerful on our call before we had this. And it's like, the next level, who you are with what you know, put what
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
into action. Like, let's dig in on that because that right there,
Yeah.
there's some meat there.
Yeah, we got a shelf back here, and it's got a whole bunch of books. I don't know if you can see it, but we are in an epidemic of shelf esteem, which is people buy these
Mm.
things and then they go in the books and they go on the shelves, and then there's like a percentage, about 90% of people won't even read them. They'll buy them and they'll sit somewhere. 10% of people pick it up and they'll read it. It'll go on the shelf of their mind, but less than 3% of people put it out into the world. And so we're in this world nowadays where people have all the access to information and they believe that the next level for me to succeed is like, I got to get the information. I got to get all that stuff in my head. And I have clients that I work with, you know, that own like 10-figure businesses. And so I'll sit down, I'll talk to them and go, like, okay, not 10, sorry, 8. And I'll sit down and go, let me break this all down. What's the problem? Oh, well, I had this to do and I had this to do, but then like this came up. Like my wife was doing this or my kids had this, and we're gonna take a vacation at some point or something. I'm gonna push it off a little bit. And I go, okay, great. Tell me again, what did you want? What was your goal? And they'll tell me what their goal is. I say, okay, great. They'll tell me this. Does the person who has that in their life, would they make that excuse? And you they sit there and pause and they go, ah, you're right, Aunt. I go, yeah, I know. And so in those moments, I realize you had the information. You know what to do. The problem is not the information. It's who you are with it in that moment.
Mm.
And that's an identity thing. People think it's a mindset thing. You know, it's just like, I'm tired thing. Like it's who you are. Because the truth is, me and you, if we're sitting here and I kind of grasp the kind of human you are, if there's something that has to get done and it's like attached to who you are to get it done, you won't go to sleep until it's completed.
Correct.
If I promise something to somebody, my integrity is part of who I am. Therefore, I got to get it done. Now, someone goes, and how do you get all that done? And my thing is like, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't. As difficult as it is for you to maybe do it, it's that difficult for me not to do it. It's easy. And that's become a part of my identity. So when I talk to people and I walk them through our process, it's not about the info. Like the insight's there, the information's there. It's on social media. You can buy a course. You probably bought the courses. You bought the books. It's not the issue. The issue is who are you with it? And if you're the right person with it, you get so much more done. And the crazy thing is, if you're the right person, most of the time you don't even need to buy that stuff. Because think about it, the person who wrote the book, who created the course, they're the kind of human that went and did that. All they did was go back and say, here's how I did it.
Mm-hmm.
It started with who are they as a human. So like identity is this thing that a lot of people think is this esoteric, spiritual, philosophical. No, it shows up in how you show up every single day.
Yes, and accountability is like the biggest piece. Like you said, we have all the information, but are you holding yourself accountable? Do you have somebody to hold yourself accountable because maybe you're just not at that point? And you're absolutely right. I am that person. I'm like, if I did not get the list, the checklist done that I set out, and you know, I have my weeks booked out, like, or my calendar booked out for weeks or sometimes even months. It's like
Yeah.
that needs to get done because I
Mm-hmm.
put my name on it, my stamp of approval on it. I'm going to
Yeah.
do it. And that's what's got me to where I am today. And so I love that you said that because there's so many people that slip with that. And for people like us, it's like, oh, that's so easy. Like you said, yes, so just do it. But people haven't have maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like a self-respect thing, or they just don't trust themselves. Like, what would you
Part of
say when
it.
people
Yeah.
don't hold themselves to the
Yeah,
fire?
there's two reasons. One is I don't know if it's a self-respect thing because I mean people no one likes to not love themselves, right? So people have this liking, but I think they miss the love of themselves. But a big piece of it is the barriers that stand in the way. And the majority of the problem, it's like there's brakes on the dream. And the brakes can be an inefficiency. The brakes could be a lack of organization. The brakes could be a lack of knowledge at times, lack of network, lack of a reason of wondering why I'm going to do this hard thing, right? A lot of what I do is I look at the way that you craft the identity, and it's already been done for a lot of us, but haphazardly. Like when we grew up, we had teachers, preachers, coaches, leaders, news, radio, television, movies, that we just kind of absorbed this stuff, and it created this identity that we have running in our lives now. And we did it accidentally. And in order to be able to get to that level, you have to just go back and do it purposely, with intention. And
Mm.
that's actually a lot of like, let me think through who I'm going to be. Because people do this habits thing, right? When I love habits, they are powerful, they're necessary. But people are big on grabbing habits, but they're never thinking about who am I going to become with this habit?
Ooh,
I'm just going to
that's
borrow
good.
this. I'm going to borrow Molly's habits. I'm going to borrow Anthony's habits, and I'm going to get down the road 20 years and go, oh, who am I? I don't even like the midlife crisis, right? You just didn't think about, well, who am I becoming with this? And so, like, I tell people, in order to get to that level, you got to go back and say, how did I become this person? Take a look, you'll notice some things pop out and go, okay, great. Now that I know that, well, who do I want to become? The big piece, who do I actually want to become? And what are the habits that make that person? Because they might be different than anything else I can imagine. And now I can go back and say, great, well, how do I organize my life to go that way? How do I choose the habits I want to have? How do I choose the network? How do I understand why this is important to me, what it's going to turn into? And when you get that stuff kind of rooted, now you can go forth and start living your life. And it should feel just as easy as life should feel now. You have your ups and downs, but like people have a homeostasis, a normalcy level of we'll call it emotional drain. Done right, it's the same amount of drain, but you're going much faster because you actually planned it and you're doing the right stuff.
That's so important. That's so key because there's so many people where they're like, oh, it's my upbringing, or it's my parents, or oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Well,
Yeah,
take the time to figure out what it is because you can change
do
that.
it.
I didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I actually found a girl in a company I was in way back when in network marketing. I said, I like you. I like your results. I'm about to reverse engineer all of you. And then I
Yeah,
did that. And that's what led me to where I am because I didn't want to be a product of my environment. Love my family, but it wasn't for me. So I love that you
same.
mentioned that because sometimes you got to rip off another band-aid and be like, how do I separate myself in order to elevate? Not saying you're better than anybody else. You're just choosing to a different path for you than your future family, your family you have now, whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
But it takes that time, and I'd love for you to speak on this part. It takes time to sit down and reflect. And
Oh
like,
yeah.
tell me a little bit about how that is for you, because obviously, with the intelligence that you have, everything you've been able to create, you take time to reflect. You don't have revelations like this. If you just, oh, one day you're
Mm.
sitting at your desk, you're like, boom. It's
Yeah, yeah.
what do
It
you
takes
do to
time.
reflect to get
There,
there?
there's a couple. So when I read a lot, that's one piece. It is an interesting book. I want to say I got it back here. Here we go. I'm gonna pull it out. It's called A Technique for Producing Ideas. It's an interesting little
Mm,
book. It's like 36 pages, and it talks about the concept because you know, like when you have like shower thoughts, we'll call them. The brain
yep.
goes in like there's like certain wave, like theta waves, or I don't know. I can't think of what it is. It's a certain wavelength your brain goes into, like right before sleep in the shower, and it just kind of it starts to grab stuff you put back there. So I actually feed that so that that little animal, when it's doing its thing back there and simmering, it puts something great forward. I also do something called thinking time. So I have a hammock in my backyard, and I'll go back and just sit, and you don't do anything but think and write. You don't go on the phone, you don't listen to music, you just look into the sky and let your brain spin and just answer questions. You ask a question before you get started and answer the question. And you'd be surprised how much starts pulling through that's tucked back there from conversations had previously that connect dots to a book you read and a video that you watched a year ago and this conversation you heard and then just random stuff and you're like, oh, and then it pops down and I write it, right? So these are ways that ideas come to mind for me. And I think that this is something anybody can do, but to be honest, this is the one thing I'm able to do that a lot of people at certain, you call it stages in their life aren't. I am able to be with somebody I'd never used to like to be with. So there was a point in my time I didn't like this guy. I wasn't a fan of who he was doing. And I did everything I could to be with other people, not with him. I want to be hanging out with
Mm,
friends and going to the movies and hanging out with women and with my wife and my kids. But when I was with this guy, I was like, oh, we got to watch TV. And so because I like and love this guy now through process and time built doing things that make me love this human, like I can sit there by myself in my own head and spend time. And it allows me to uncover a lot about myself that I currently am like, ooh, I don't like how you do that, man. And not like hate myself, right? But it allows me to be continuously learning to be able to teach from. But that's everybody's next level. Because without doing that, I don't care if you make 6 figures, 7 figures, your next level, you got the connections already. You probably have the income to invest in someone. It's all tied to who are you with it. And when you can start
mm.
taking a look at like who am I with what I got right now, if you want a good steward with what you have, God doesn't give you more, right? So it's like, how do I become a good steward with what I have so I can get more in life? And a lot of it ties to who in the world are you?
So good. So many nuggets here. Oh man, just the heat. We packed this one in. I love it. And as we're wrapping this up, Anthony, just thank you. This has been so great. Any final thoughts you have? And then the best place for people to kind of learn a little bit more about you, what you do, and feel free to
Yeah.
plug whatever you want here.
Plug whatever I want. Yeah. Final thoughts. What are final thoughts, man? You know what? I'm just a guy on the internet saying things. And if the things I say make sense, by all means, pay attention. If they don't, I still love you, but find somebody who does. Because as much as there is a bunch of people on here taking baths and SpaghettiOs, there are also people sharing some knowledge that helps humans. And so I try to be that to the right people. And if I'm a good fit, great. If not, totally cool. You can follow me on Instagram here at Anthony Trucks. I have a book coming out August 24th. And you guys can be the first to do this. So if you go to identityshiftbook.com, you have an opportunity. You can go pre-order the book and come back at the receipt and then put that code in. And I'm giving out free audio book that I'm going to record here the next couple of weeks. I'm giving out a free workbook and digital copy of the book. So you just got to go and put the code. I put one for you. It's MT. You guys who are listening, identityshiftbook.com, go through the process, put the code MT in. When the book comes out, you'll get the book. You'll get the first 10 people to use your code will get a signed autographed copy from me. You'll get a workbook, and you'll also get an audiobook for free. So go do all that fun stuff. It's based on what I just talked about, but more in depth, more personal stories in a way, like the rubric and the code of like, how do I actually structurally look at my identity and shift it the way I choose?
So good. I mean, gosh, you guys, there was so much value that was dropped on this live. So if you just jumped on, you got to watch the recording. And then he just gave you like an amazing gift. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm still laughing at you said people putting out videos of them bathing in spaghetti.
They do, man.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
We have a computer that my kids use, and when I walk down the hallway, I can see it. And I walk down all the time. My kids are just watching the most random thing. And it's got like, listen to this. I'm not even kidding. I put on everything I love. I'm walking down to get here to the studio, and my daughter's in the computer, and there's a video of a person with like a little 1-inch butcher knife, and she's chopping up beef, and she's chopping up mini onions and everything. It's a miniature, like making miniature beef stew. And I take a look, I go a little closer, 22 million views. It blew my mind. I'm like, what am I doing? Give me a tiny knife real quick. Like, you know, jeez. Yes.
Honestly, I mean, that's it. People want to be entertained. And it's like, people watch the dumbest things. I watch some of the stuff my husband watches late at night. I'm like, really? Like that? He's like, it's my brain off time. I'm like, clearly, because that like will take away brain cells. But hey, you know what? To each their own. But Anthony, again, thank you so much. Good laughs, good word here. So many great gifts as well. Just really appreciate your time today.
Very welcome. Very welcome. And the code is MT, you guys. If someone asks real quick, it's MT. Molly Trotter. MT. Makes sense.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for everybody else watching, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Take care.